Dissociative Identity Disorder, D.I.D. D.I.D, formerly known as multiple personality disorder or split personality disorder, is a member of dissociative disorders as classified in the DSM-5. The manual used by medical professionals to help diagnose conditions and disorders. D.I.D is classified as having at least two distinct personality states. This is where someone has multiple personalities living within one body. You may have heard of the term alters. Alters refer to the alternate personalities living within someone. D.I.D affects up to 1.5% of the population and is diagnosed about 6 times more often in women. Cases of D.I.D has risen sharply since the second half of the 20th century. Is this due to better recognition or socio-cultural factors like mass media portrayals? What do you think? Do we see this more frequently because we can identify it better, or is it a cause of media portrayals and cultural impacts? Interestingly, culture plays a huge role in D.I.D. Some cultures find states of possession to be normal. Alter identities typically take the form of possessing spirits, deities, ghosts, and other mythical creatures in cultures where this is normalized. This begs the question, is D.I.D caused by some kind of spirit possession, or is spirit possession caused by D.I.D? Historically, not a lot of cases were identified. Dissociative disorders were considered the rarest of psychological conditions. In the 19th century, the term double consciousness was coined and described as sleepwalking. This was explained as a person having one personality while awake and then an altered personality whilst in a sleep state. By 1944, only about 100 cases had been diagnosed, and only one more case was reported in the following 2 decades. In the 1980s, cases began to be more prevalent. Not only did the cases of D.I.D rise, but also the number of alters a person claimed to have. With this number averaging 13, I don't know about you, but I have a hard enough time keeping up with my own schedule, let alone 13. Add a few more voices in my head and that sucker would be pretty loud. By the end of the 20th century, diagnosis of D.I.D hit its peak with over 40,000 cases, while less than 200 had been reported prior to 1970. So what causes D.I.D in the first place? Generally, there are 2 theories on what causes D.I.D. The first is thought to be trauma-related. This suggests that as a child, the patient dealt with trauma or extreme adversity. The second is that society plays more of a role, or the non-trauma model. It is suggested that these patients develop D.I.D from living in a fantasy world, being highly suggestible through role play and from other cultural influences. Early life trauma may be the biggest factor causing D.I.D, usually before the age of 6, but other risk factors include painful medical procedures, war, terrorism, or other stressors that create a split in one's personality to help them cope with their reality. This split is where alters are created, so the primary personality can disassociate and try to find respite from the pain. Symptoms usually appear between the ages of 5 to 10. Also, an alter to the primary personality will make an appearance. Memory issues play a big role in D.I.D. When you think about it, this makes perfect sense. Extreme stressors are the likely cause for D.I.D forming, and disassociating is the mind trying to forget these stressors or abuse. Not to mention switching between personalities can make it hard to remember what the other one was thinking and doing. Self-consciousness in the passage of time also becomes blurred for patients. Dissociative amnesia can occur, and people are reluctant to speak out about their symptoms due to hesitancy on their part to relive past traumas. 50% of patients have fewer than 10 alters, and most have less than 100. Unbelievably, there is a case of D.I.D where the patient claimed to have 4,500 alters. That's the equivalent of shuffling through 12 different personalities every day for a whole year. A large percentage of people suffering from D.I.D also have a history of borderline personality disorder or PTSD. Schizophrenia has its own classification since the delusions experienced are not rooted in trauma, though both have a high rate of auditory hallucinations. Drug use and sleep disorders are also linked to D.I.D. There are famous cases and media resources for D.I.D. In 1957, the best-selling book The Three Faces of Eve was published, followed by a popular movie of the same name. This was a case study on patient Chris Costner Sizemore. After this release, the public's interest in multiple personality was rekindled. In 1974, the influential book Sybil was published, followed by a miniseries in 1976, and again in 2007, detailing treatment of a famous case of multiple personality suffered by Shirley Ardell Mason. Focus was given on the patient being given sodium pentothal and the belief that this could be a hoax to cash in on lucrative publishing rights. Spoiler alert, plots of the following movies will be discussed. In the year 2000, Me, Myself, and Irene was released starring Jim Carrey and Renee Zellweger. This movie follows the life of Rhode Island State Trooper Charlie. After years of suppressing his feelings and rage, he has a psychotic breakdown. This results in the emergence of a second personality, Hank. Side note, the Foo Fighters released a song entitled Breakout for this movie's soundtrack. If you haven't heard it, give it a listen. In 1999, the massive hit Fight Club starring Brad Pitt and Edward Norton was released. This movie portrays Tyler Durden, played by Pitt, and the unknown narrator, played by Norton. This was done intentionally to represent him as the everyman. The movie has many scenes and dialogue between these two characters, only in the end to find out that they are different personalities of the same person. In 2004, Secret Window was released, based on the works of Stephen King, starring Johnny Depp and John Turturro. Mort, played by Depp, is a writer. John Shooter, played by Turturro, is also a writer who claims Mort plagiarized him. Mort struggles with this and the fact that his wife wants a divorce. As the movie progresses, we learn Shooter is a figment of Mort's imagination brought on by D.I.D. And possibly one of the best and latest movies dealing with D.I.D. is Split. This classic was released in 2016 and stars James McAvoy and Anya Taylor-Joy. This movie was written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan and was a commercial success, grossing $278 million worldwide on a $9 million budget. Kevin Wendell Crumb, played by McAvoy, is a man diagnosed with D.I.D. rooted in childhood trauma and has 23 distinct alters, with Hedwig possibly being my favorite. Other alters include Dennis, Patricia, and the ultimate alter known as the Beast. Collectively, these alters are known as the Horde. Casey Cook is portrayed by Taylor-Joy, who herself has a history of trauma. The madness that ensues is pure theatrical genius. I really like the idea of how people who have gone through trauma are different from those who haven't. These people become marked and are different or possibly more evolved because of needing to face these issues or, as in Crumb's case, create whole new identities and even superpowers, which can only be achieved through the suffering that one must endure. If you haven't seen this one, it is a must-watch and you will not regret it. There you have it, people. That was our deep dive into D.I.D. This disorder really is fascinating. The power to create a whole new personality is thought-provoking. The trauma and stress the brain has to go through to split itself, to disassociate and rise above. Many people feel as though this is all in the head of the sufferer, that these alters aren't real, just a sophisticated case of imaginary friends. But where do you stand on this subject? Do you believe in the power that our minds hold? The ability to completely change who you are to cope with trauma? Or is this make-believe, just an elaborate version of role-playing? Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching today's video. Check out one of these other videos. Hit that subscribe button and have a wonderful day.